Dementia units are highly regimented places, and in a sense they need to be. There's so much to coordinate. Take meals, for example. Breakfast at 8, lunch 12 o'clock, dinner 5 o'clock, then the toileting rounds, that's every 2 hours, not to mention medications, where you have to get the right patient or person, the right drug, the right time, the right dose. It all runs like clockwork, and everything has its place so it can tick along nicely without too much confusion, because there's so much to consider in a dementia unit. As former army guys that lived in a unit used to say, just like in the army. And so they adjusted well. Those men that had spent most of their time in the army liked the routine of the dementia unit, getting up early, rise and shine, everything on time, so they adjusted and assimilated quite easily. But if the person, the dementia resident who comes to the unit has not had that routine, if the person has been living alone maybe for 20 years, since they've been retired, say at 65, then at 85, the person comes into the dementia unit and they've been used to their own routine for 20 years, getting up when they want to, having meals when they want to, sometimes not even having meals, just having the odd snack. I mean, that happens a lot. That's why so many of the elderly women that come into dementia units are very thin, almost wasted, because they haven't been cooking very much, motivated to cook when they have a husband to cook for, but for themselves, they just live on very little. So that in itself is a vast change when they come to the unit and are presented with 3, to them, what seems like massive meals and options. They might have just had, porridge for breakfast and a toasted cheese sandwich for lunch and little else for dinner. And then all of a sudden they're sort of presented with a banquet. That can be disorientating in itself. So that's another subject, mealtime, and people putting on weight and having too much sugar and all the problems that can cause. But back to the regimented routine. So if your mother, for example, has always been a late riser, she goes to bed late and she likes getting up late, that is difficult in a dementia unit, because residents are expected to get up early. They need to be at breakfast at 8 o'clock anyway, and many of them have their shower before that. And so they need to get up at least by 7:30 to be at breakfast by 8, by the time they get their dressing gown on and, walk down the corridor and get a seat at the dining table, etc. Everything takes time. It's never just 2 minutes. So 7:30 in the morning can be quite early for a person who's used to getting up at 9 o'clock, for example, and their whole biorhythm and emotional routine can be put out, and they can get really quite anxious because of it. Also because, they can be in a deep sleep and then they're woken up by the carer. There's no alarm clocks in dementia units, so it can be a bit of a shock to the system, being woken up anyway, but at a different time, much earlier than they normally would. I mean, in the winter, they're getting up in the dark, pretty much, if it's 7 o'clock or 7:30, when they're used to getting up when the sun's up and there's sun flooding in the window. So people are expected to abide by the routine, because patients are expected to abide, because if they don't, it becomes unmanageable. There's too much work for the staff. I mean, if you've got 30 people that you're delivering breakfast to, and half of them want to be in their room for breakfast, it's double the work, taking the breakfast trays up the running up the corridor, that's 30, 40, 50 metres sometimes to get to each patient, and then back. Staff haven't got time for that. So, but allowances can be made and are made for new residents. I mean, it's understood that it's a massive adjustment. And if, for example, you as the daughter explains to the charge nurse or the clinical manager that your mother is a late riser, she's not used to getting up early, and getting up early, causes stress and anxiety. And if at all possible, for the first month or two, while since she's come into the unit. She's a new resident. If for the first month or two, if she can have breakfast in her room, you'd really appreciate it, because that will alleviate the stress, and hopefully throughout that time your mother will get to recognise the routine, get in tune with it, get to know other people at her dining table and feel more relaxed, and make more of an effort, hopefully, to get up early and abide with the routine. So allowances can be made. You just need to understand where your mother's at, what she's coping with, what she's not. Ask her, observe, ask the carer especially. She will be the one that knows most, actually, about your mother and the whole morning routine, because she's the one that does the showering and the hairdressing and toileting, etc. So scope that out, and then if you can see that your mother really is stressed and you think it is because she's getting up early that's causing the problem, maybe the breakfast can be delivered to her room at 9 o'clock. I mean, that's quite generous. Yeah, that's very generous actually, because breakfast will be finishing at 9, but maybe 8:45 she can get her breakfast, and then hopefully in time she'll be able, you can encourage her to go to breakfast on time with the other ladies. When she gets to know her neighbour, or she gets to know the ladies at her own dining table, there'll be more incentive for her to go to breakfast, to go to meet the other women and to have a bit of friendship. But when she's first there, it's isolating, and it can be a lonely experience, and especially if you don't know the ladies at your table and they've already made friends with each other and you don't know them, and you're not very good at making friends or being social, and you find speech difficult. All of these things, play a part. But in terms of easing into the situation, breakfast can be taken to the room, and also if you as a relative can go for a few meals, not breakfast, but lunch or dinner with your mother at the table where her dining table colleagues are, and warm up the conversation, so to speak, with mother and with the other ladies, that will go a long way actually to the other women accepting your mother in the group. If you're social, chances are they expect in time your mother will be. And it's always nice having a relative come to the dining table to dine with you, whether it's your mother or not. It's a quasi de facto, or whether it's your daughter or not. It's just about as good to have another daughter of the other ladies at the table come and socialise with you. It's a social occasion, a special social occasion actually. So these are all the ways that you can help modify and, not annul the routine, but make it not so severe, because otherwise it can be very harsh if your mother's expected to follow the routine absolutely by the clock. But if there can be some liberties by half an hour or so, or an hour or so at the start, with meal times and meal routines, this goes a long way to being able to buffer things along and increase the resilience of your mother, so she can have some chance of being able to adjust in the routine and not become stressed out in the process. The whole goal being to keep her stable, so that she doesn't escalate up into anxiety or down into depression. And just if you can get that routine sorted out so that she can manage, that will go a long way to her being able to adjust to living in the dementia unit. So I've written these 2 books, The Resident's Voice and The Resident's Rise, both from a dementia unit, all about the experiences of these dementia residents and dementia facilities from their perspective. So you can get the books on Amazon easily, and also a soft cover, hardcover and ebooks. So ebooks, of course, are very popular and doing quite well and convenient. So you can get those on Amazon just the same as the soft cover and hardcover, and they're printed on request. So it's all very easy these days. Now, thank you so much, everybody. Look, really heartfelt thank you to all of you out there, especially on TikTok. It is amazing, all these views and likes and hearts and comments, and it's just fantastic. The platform's really getting up and running now, so there's going to be a chance of being able to get the information out about these wonderful dementia residents and their voice and what they would like to communicate, and their experiences, from their experiences and their perspective. Thank you.